get started. In the last couple classes, we introduced the theory of firm behavior. Why? What is it we're trying to do here? Why are we talking about firm behavior? What do we even mean by firm behavior? Do you remember? Let's start easy. Something.
How much they produce?
Yeah, by firm behavior we mean how much firms are producing. Look guys, we call it firm behavior. Generally, the word behavior is a very vague word, right? When you tell a little kid, hey, behave yourself, right? You know what you mean, don't act out. But generally, what is human behavior? Oh, that's so much there to it, right? How we present ourselves and how we present ourselves and act in private and whatnot. It's a complicated thing. There's whole sciences, psychology, sociology, I don't know, right? Dealing with human behavior. Economics is also about human behavior. Here, right now, we are focusing our attention on behavior of firms. Firm behavior. Still, when you think about it, firm behavior can be all kinds of things. For example, do you think hiring and firing employees, HR policies, are part of firm behavior?
Yeah.
Absolutely. How about research and development? How much the firm decides to research and development on their own, how much they outsource to some specialized think tanks. Is that part of behavior? Sure as heck. How about advertisement? Is that part of firm behavior, how firms advertise themselves? Absolutely. Is that what we're talking about here? All these varied aspects of firm behavior? Yes or no? Have you heard me talking about HR and advertising? No, that's not what we're talking about. So, what is it we mean when we say firm behavior? We really narrow the meaning of that down to the very basic one-dimensional aspect of firm behavior, and that's a choice of quantity produced. Okay? We reduce the firm's behavior to quantity the firm chooses to produce. That's all we study. We don't study anything else about the firm. That makes sense? Why? Is really choice of quantity the single most important thing about a firm. Imagine one day you meet a pizza place manager. It happens to be a captivating person with a lot of charisma. A self-made person, self-made woman, self-made man. Is the first question that crosses your mind when you ask them, gee, you're so interesting, how many pizzas a day do you bake? Is that the first question that you ask? Maybe not. There's probably several more interesting things you want to know about a captivating person, right? Why? So why do we focus our study here on that singular question, on that particular aspect? If we all know it's not really the most interesting thing. Because we somehow got here by studying the market, right? And in the market you have demand and you have supply. And we eventually ended up studying supply. Do you remember what supply is? I know this is a curveball question. This was the first class. It's what, 2 months ago. Eternity. What is supply? Quantity? No. What is supply? Okay, what is it? What kind of quantity is it? It's the quantity firms are willing and able to produce. That's why we're asking how much firms are producing, because we're studying supply, right? That's how we got here, guys. But again, why are we interested in supply? What's so interesting about supply? Look, it's an upward sloping line. Are you excited? No, it's just an upward sloping line. In other words, let me rephrase the question. What is it we are trying to explain in this class? What is it we're chasing after? What is this course all about? Efficiency, absolutely. You remember, right? What is the economy? What is the economy?
Resources turned into goods and services.
Economy is the system that transforms resources into goods and services, right? So it gobbles up resources, whips out goods and services. That's what the economy does. What's the difference between good economies and bad economies? Efficiency, right? Efficiency makes all the difference. Now here's the deal, guys. Just so we're all perfectly clear as to what is it we're trying to do here. Before this course, before 2023, you have taken Principles of Macroeconomics, 2013. What was that course about? Did that course remind you of this course?
Yes.
In what respect? What do the two courses share? Did you talk about marginal cost and marginal revenue in macro?
No.
Never. Were you talking about how firms maximize profit in macro? Never. So what do those two courses have in common? Except part of name, economics,
Pretty
right?
much about the
You said
supply and demand.
Okay, supply and demand. What kind of supply and demand did you talk about in macro? Well, not this supply and demand. You were talking about aggregate supply and aggregate demand, right? Different stuff. It looked similar, but those are fundamentally different concepts. The bottom line is, what was that course about? What was macro about? We just said micro is about efficiency. What was macro about?
The whole
Wasn't it like fixing the economy?
Fixing the economy. Fixing the economy, what happens?
Employment
The
rate.
policy.
Huh?
Employment rates.
Okay,
Unemployment.
okay, yes, employment, unemployment.
And fix them with different policies.
Policies, see, those were the words we were using, stuff like employment, unemployment policies, right? Okay, yeah, we use those words, definitely. What was the entire course about? You said fixing the economy. Fixing it from what?
Efficiency.
Hmm?
Efficiency.
That's what it was
Inflation.
not about.
Inflation.
Inflation was one of the things we talked about. Unemployment was another thing we talked about. Why did we talk about inflation and unemployment?
Because we were trying to fix it from a recession.
In other words, we were talking about, okay guys, we were talking about the health of the economy. Health of the economy, right? Health of the economy. In other words, we were also talking about economy. That's why your macro also starts with a question, what is economy? It's a system that transforms resources into goods and services. But then we asked, is the economy healthy or is it not healthy? Right? So macro was about health of the economy. Is the economy healthy or not healthy? How can you tell if it's healthy or not healthy? 3 vital signs.
Yes.
Economic growth, inflation, unemployment. That's what we studied. In order to be able to tell whether the economy is healthy or not, correct? And once you find out it's not healthy, we introduced aggregate demand, aggregate supply to diagnose the sickness, right? Aggregate demand, aggregate supply was simply an X-ray picture of the economy.
What were the 3 things for healthy?
Economic growth, inflation, and unemployment. Don't let that confuse you. That was the previous course. I'm not going to test you on it
Okay.
now, right? But I just want to make sure that you understand why you're sitting here for 8 weeks almost, and where is it you're about to get, right? So the bottom line is, yes, 2013 was about health of the economy. You can tell whether the economy is healthy or not based on those 3 vital signs. Once you see vital signs are out of whack, you want to know what's wrong with the economy. What do? You take aggregate demand, aggregate supply. Everybody remembers aggregate demand, aggregate supply? Boring, right? But it's very useful. Because you take a look at aggregate demand, aggregate supply, and you spot what? Gaps. Contractionary gap, expansionary gap. Remember? You look at the gaps, and those tell you what is wrong with the economy. And once you know what's wrong with the economy, you have two options. You do nothing, wait 10, 15, 20 years, and maybe the economy is going to be okay, right? If you don't have 10, 15, 20 years to wait, you deploy policies, which are pills, antibiotics for the economy, right? You use fiscal and monetary policy to heal the sick economy, okay? That's what macro is about. It's about the health of the economy. How does it differ from what we're talking about right now? Here's the deal, guys. Is American economy efficient? It is the most efficient economy on earth. Is American economy always healthy? Sometimes it can be healthy for years, and it grows wonderfully, unemployment is low, inflation is low and stable, and things are wonderful, right? Then, once in a while, 2008 comes, right? Economy falls into recession combined with horrific financial crisis, and it's been 5 years since we snapped out of the recession and the economy is still not healthy, right? It doesn't change anything on the fact that this is an amazing economy. We can produce all kinds of things more efficiently than just about anyone else, but we are still not healthy. One day we're going to be healthy, okay? So that entire course, 2013 macro, was about how to make a sick economy healthy again, okay? And you can basically apply it best to the American economy. What we never ever asked in 2013 was, what makes the American economy efficient? It was simply assumed. American economy is amazing. It's efficient. Sometimes it just gets sick. Okay? That's all there's to it. You can think of it this way. Let me put it in the following context, following parallel. Some people are talented athletes, and some people are more like myself. Not quite so, right? Now, even talented athletes sometimes get sick, right? Does it make them less talented when they catch cold or flu? Less talented?
Well, I mean,
They happen to
won't
be
able play
sick,
as
but they're
well.
still brilliant athletes.
Yeah, but they won't be able to play as well.
No, of course.
Okay.
No kidding. Performance decreases.
Yeah,
but they're
that's
still
okay.
awesome athletes, just at the time sick with flu, right? But when you treat them right, they will come back to health and they're all again gonna be great athletes, right? Frankly, do you think that a great athlete with a really bad flu would outrun me on a half-a-mile dash? I think so. I'm afraid so. Even when I'm in my peak form, I'm sure that a sick athlete will certainly outrun me. Okay? So, if you're interested in health, you just take a look at, okay, 3 vitals. You take a look at someone and you say, oh my gosh, you seem to be burning. Let's take a look at your temperature, let's take a look at your blood pressure and whatever other vital sign there is, pulse, right? And then you talk about health of a person. But once you understand what makes people healthy, what makes people sometimes catch the flu, and what makes them come back to health, does that study tell you anything about why somebody is a great runner? Is that the same thing? If you're studying medicine and you're studying flu, are you in the process going to learn how someone becomes a great athlete? No. It's a very different thing. You're just looking at health, right? Sometimes people are healthy, sometimes they get a flu. But if you want to find out how come somebody is endowed with an ability to run like a wind, you have to look at that person very differently. You have to study something else about that person, right? What would you start studying about a person if you wanted to know what makes them a great athlete? Would you ask them, how many times in your life did you have a flu? Would that explain why the person runs like a wind? It has nothing to do with that. You would probably start studying, I don't know, take blood sample and look at oxygenation or something. Like, wow, this person has blood so oxygenated, somehow they have these lungs that oxygen, or some, I don't know. You guys tell me, you are athletes. You tell me what makes you fast, right? But the bottom line is, those are two different issues. Do you feel how different that is? In other words, what makes American economy this awesome athlete, very efficient athlete, that sometimes gets sick, but that's a different story, right? That's a different issue. Yes, sometimes American economy gets sick, sometimes it's healthy, and we studied that in 2013. Now in 2023, in micro, we are asking, what makes the American economy the amazing economy it is? Because guys, even in 2008, at the depth of the recession and financial crisis, American economy was still a marvel of the world. Guys, in 2009, the recession bottomed out. Unemployment 10.1%. You know what we did in America in 2009? Does anyone remember? Steve Jobs invented iPad and introduced it to the market. Isn't it remarkable? Who else on earth can do stuff like that? Even at our sickest, we are still absolutely awesome. That's what I'm telling you, right? So, those are two really different ways to look at a person or at an economy. In other words, in macro, we were looking at health of the economy, and we found all the answers we needed about how to tell if the economy is healthy or not, those three vital signs, what's wrong with the economy, using aggregate demand, aggregate supply, and the answers, the policies. We found all those answers looking at the economy as a whole, okay? Looking at the economy as a whole, as the entire body of the economy. That's why we're saying macro. It was a macro view of the entire economy. And that's all you need if you're just asking, is the economy healthy or not? However, if you want to ask, what makes the American economy the marvel it is, that awesome, efficient engine that transforms resources into goods and services, you can look at the economy as a whole all you want, and you will not find the answers. There is nothing just looking at the American economy from up above that tells you what makes us so efficient. This is why we decided to search for answer to this question, not by looking at the whole economy, but rather by looking at a detail, right? Imagine you're trying to figure out what makes someone a great athlete. You look at them, you count their legs and hands, and you find out, okay, they have 2 legs and 2 hands just like everybody else. Does that tell you why they run so fast? Maybe you thought, maybe they have 8 legs, that's why they run like a wind or something. No, just 2 legs. So looking at the person as a whole person doesn't tell you what makes them run so fast. So someone might come up with an idea. You know what? Let's try and take a look at cells in muscles. Let's take out one muscle cell and let's compare it to the muscle cell from a regular person. And maybe we will find out that these super runners have muscle cells that look really different from other people. They just have better muscle cells or something. That makes sense? But of course, if you want to study muscle cells, what do you have to do? You have to use microscope. That's right. That's exactly what we're doing here. It turns out that if you're looking for the secret of efficiency, you can't look at the economy from far above. You have to take a look at the economy in detail. So you have to look at the economy under the microscope. What's that microscope called? Microeconomics, right? That's the method we're employing here. So we basically dissect this little cell out of the economy, basic building block of that economy, of which there are millions, and we put it under the microscope, and what do we see? Market. Okay? That's that cell of which the economy is built out of. So, a single, or market for a single good, right? And this is what we were studying first few weeks, right? We were studying the market with demand and supply and policies and efficiency and consumer surplus, producer surplus, right? Floors, ceilings, taxes, subsidies. That's what we've done. We played with that microscope so much there was nothing left to study. Did we find out what makes American economy efficient? We made some startling observations. For example, we found out that every single time you knock economy out of equilibrium with some policy, floor, ceiling, tax, or subsidy, what happens to total surplus? Every time you knock the economy out of equilibrium, what happens to total surplus? It goes down, right? There's deadweight loss. Every policy that we studied resulted in deadweight loss, right? And we found out that there is something about equilibrium that makes it efficient. And when you move the economy, knock the economy out of equilibrium, or market out of the equilibrium, it ends up inefficient. And deadweight loss measures the size of that inefficiency, right? That's what we learned. But despite that up-close look with a microscope, we did not find the secret of efficiency. We still were not able to find out what makes the economy efficient. And that's why we decided to do what? Double down. If looking that close is not going to do it, then we have to look even closer, right? Even closer. Well, what does it mean to look even closer? Well, we decided to look even closer at the supply curve. Well, what does it mean to look even closer at the supply curve? Think about it. What is supply? Quantity firms are willing and able to produce, right? How many firms are there? For example, how many firms in America grow corn? How many farmers in America grow corn? Tens of thousands, right? So this supply represents behavior of tens of thousands of producers. So we decided to take a microscope and set it so close that when you take a look at that supply under that microscope, you actually see what? Not 10,000 firms.
One.
You see one firm. Exactly. That makes sense? And that's why we decided to ask, what is the quantity that not 10,000 firms choose to produce? What is the quantity that one firm chooses to produce? That makes sense? And we assume that the firm chooses that quantity in order to
Maximize the profit.
maximize the profit, which is the difference between total revenue and total cost. That makes sense? So it literally is a microscopic work. We're first looking at a cell, and then we're looking inside a cell at one single firm, okay? And that's what we've been doing over the last couple classes, looking at the behavior of a single firm. That makes sense? And we learned a bunch of stuff. What have we learned in the process? Well, here's what we learned. First of all, we learned that we have to study separately the cost side of firm behavior and the revenue side of the firm behavior, right? To understand the cost side of the firm behavior, we first moved pianos, remember? Remember moving pianos, guys? Boring, right? The point was that when you move pianos, somehow the pattern of number of pianos you move looks like this in relation to number of workers you hire. Do you remember why was it snaking like that? What makes total product look like this? Have you ever tried moving a piano alone? How much fun is it? If you're alone, one person, you can barely move a piano, right? Does adding another worker make a difference? Does it make a difference whether you do it alone or you do it with someone? Moving furniture. If you've ever tried moving furniture, you know that having help makes all the difference, world of difference, right? That's what you see in this graph. You see, one person alone can move the furniture that much, you can think of it. You add another person, and the two of you together can move furniture that much. So the second person helps a lot. That makes sense? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Good. Does adding a third person make difference when you're moving furniture? Sure, third person is always welcome to join and certainly helps. Fourth person, fifth person, sixth person, well, ultimately, there must be a limit to just how much additional person helps, right? Why is there a limit? Why is the 20th guy who joins the party moving a piano not going to make a whole lot of difference?
You can only have so many people.
Why can you only have so many people?
Getting away.
Just say it, yeah?
Is it getting away?
Getting away, it's getting crowded there,
Getting
right?
crowded,
In other words,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, even large piano is only this large, and there's only this many people who fit around it. And if you keep adding people, eventually they start tripping over each other. In other words, adding people helps to increase total product to a degree, right? Eventually, as you add more and more people, those additional people help less and less. That makes sense? What do we call this phenomenon? This overcrowding that takes place as you add workers to the same job. The law of diminishing marginal product. The law of diminishing marginal product. Okay? That's what it is. Okay? What did we then do with total product? We switched the axes, right? Switch the axes. Once you switch the axes, you have quantity on the horizontal axis and labor on the vertical axis. And of course, when you switch the axes, also the snake twists around the 45-degree line, right? So now the snake looks like this, correct? So this bend is this bend, and this bend is this bend. In other words, this bend reflects the law of diminishing marginal product, right? Okay? But frankly, this is the same graph as this one, just axes are switched. So what can that be useful for? Well, because you can then ask, what if each of those workers costs you $100 a day to hire? Wage you pay, right? Suppose that's your only cost. Suppose the only cost of moving pianos is hiring guys and paying them $100 a day. If that's the case, then the cost of moving pianos is this, right? And if that's the case, the cost of moving pianos looks like that, right? In other words, that was our first insight into theory of cost, into properties of cost structure of a firm. Then, of course, we thought about cost more, and we realized that not all cost is like that. Not all cost rises as you increase production. For example, this quantity is the quantity of pizza you bake. Is it true that baking more pizza is more costly than baking less pizza? Sure. Is it true that your rent is higher if you bake more pizzas in your pizza place than it would be if you bake few pizzas?
No.
See? So, depends on what you mean, right? It is true that the cost of baking pizza is higher if you're talking about dough, electricity, and wages, right? Those are variable costs, right? Variable costs. But there is another component to cost structure of the firm, and that's a component such as rent that doesn't change depending on how many pizzas you bake, right? For example, your rent is always constant, right? You're paying $2,000 to rent that space where you're baking pizza. Well, it's going to be $2,000 whether you bake no pizza, some pizza, or a lot of pizza. What do we call that cost that does not really vary with quantity? We call it fixed cost, absolutely. So we know total cost is what? Total cost is your fixed cost and your variable cost together, right? And so once you add variable and fixed cost, you get total cost. Right? That's it. It is your variable cost on top of the fixed cost, right? So total cost is your fixed cost plus variable cost, right? That's what we learned. So we learned everything we needed to learn about the cost structure of the firm. See how intensely we use that microscope. We really look at every detail of not just the market, not just the firm. We're looking at every detail of the firm's cost structure. We're going so deep. We're looking inside the cell's nucleus, right? And studying the very basic parts of what the cell consists of. So once we know what total cost is, we have to ask, well, what does total revenue look like? And what did we find out? First of all, what is total revenue? If you sell 50 pizzas at $10 a pizza, what's your revenue? If you sell 50 pizzas at $10 a pizza, what's your revenue? How did you get that number?
Price times quantity.
Price times quantity. Congratulations. Right? Sorry. Little key. One firm, right? One firm's output is lowercase q. So that's your total revenue. So suppose you're baking pizza, selling it at $10. If you bake no pizza, what's your total revenue? How much total revenue do you generate if you bake no pizza?
Zero.
Zero. How much revenue do you generate if you bake one pizza? Say loud. $10. If you bake two pizzas, $20. If you bake 3 pizzas, $30. Do we really need to continue? Thank you. What is the shape of total revenue? It is a rising straight line, right? That's what total revenue looks like. So you see, now we know what total cost looks like. It's this snake. We know what the total revenue looks like. It's this rising straight line. Can we now find the quantity the firm chooses to produce? Yes. Absolutely. We can combine the two, right? We can combine combine the two, total cost and total revenue. And we have cost and revenue together in one graph. Can you tell me what quantity is this firm going to choose to produce? Well, it's going to be the quantity at which the vertical difference or distance between total revenue and total cost is the largest, right? We're trying to maximize the profit. So how do we find that quantity at which firm maximizes the profit? How did we do it? We are looking at the point, not the point, we're looking at the quantity at which slope of total cost is equal to the slope of total revenue. That makes sense? That's it. Do you remember, guys?
Yes.
Good. That's how we did. And so then we knew that's the quantity the firm produces. And we also wrote it out, and we said the firm produces quantity Q star at which slope of total revenue equals slope of total cost. Correct? That's how you find the profit maximizing quantity. But then we introduced terminology. And I told you that, guys, if you use regular English words, people don't respect you much. If you want to make impression on people, you better start using some Latin or some terminology that people don't understand. Then you actually look smart, right? I mean, that's the way science works. So, scientists don't call slope slope, because everybody would understand it. What do mathematicians call slope? Derivative. What do economists call slope? Margin. Exactly. So instead of saying the firm chooses to produce quantity Q star at which it maximizes the profit, the quantity that satisfies the profit maximizing condition, that slope of total cost is equal to slope of total revenue, economists instead say the firm chooses to produce quantity Q star at which marginal revenue equals marginal cost, right? Which is the same thing as slope of that equals slope of that. And then, of course, we talked about intuitive understanding of what those marginals mean in terms of production, right? What is marginal cost? Can you intuitively explain what marginal cost is?
Producing extra output of cost.
No, it's not extra output of cost. It is the cost of extra output. Okay? In other words, it's a cost of baking one more pizza. Okay? In other words, how much is an extra pizza going to cost you to produce? That makes sense? So that's marginal cost. What's marginal revenue? If marginal cost is cost of baking an extra pizza, then marginal revenue is the revenue from selling an extra pizza, right? Well, if you sell pizza at $10 a pizza, what is your marginal revenue of selling another pizza? How much revenue are you going to generate if you sell one more pizza? $10, right? If you're selling every pizza at $10, how much are you going to sell next one for? Whoa, that's it. So, marginal revenue for a firm that sells every pizza at the same price, marginal revenue is simply price. That makes sense? So we finally arrived at this profit maximizing condition, right? P equals MC. And then we talked about it, and I asked you, does that make any sense to anybody? Why would firm choose to produce quantity at which price and marginal cost align? Do you remember that logic we used to explain why that is the profit maximizing quantity? You're selling every pizza at $10, right? If you can bake one more pizza and it will cost you $7 to bake, should you bake it? If you can still increase output by another pizza and it will cost you $8 to bake, should you bake it? And one more pizza will cost you $9 to bake, should you bake it? Absolutely. In other words, you're increasing production until you hit the quantity at which increasing output by another unit would not make sense. That makes sense? Because once baking another pizza costs you as much as what you sell it for, are you going to increase your profit? No. That's where you stop. That makes sense? So it's a profit maximizing condition. It's very intuitive, guys. All right, so that's what we did. What did we do then? Then we did something that made pretty much no sense. We spent a class doing something that I told you would not teach us anything, right? I told you we're going to spend an hour, maybe two, of playing with curves, and in the process we're not going to learn anything. What was it we were doing while learning nothing? We were simply transforming. I wouldn't even I would use the word transforming. We were simply reformatting this picture into a different picture. This picture with total cost and total revenue. We reformatted it in the picture with average cost and average revenue and marginal cost and marginal revenue, right? In other words, we transformed or reformatted totals into averages and marginals. Okay? So basically what we did amounts to the following exercise. Suppose you land the job and you sign a contract, you're making 60 grand a year and you feel so happy. And you're sharing it, we're having lunch, I congratulate you, and then I tell you, well, did you realize you're going to be making $5,000 a month? Huh? Are you shocked? Did I just tell you something you would have never guessed? Do you now know more than you knew before? Is $5,000 a month more than 60 a year? No. I didn't tell you anything new. It's the same information, except it's formatted in different scale, if you want to call it that way. One is per year, one is per month, right? So it's the same information, just formatted different. Same thing here, guys. Once we took total cost and total revenue and reformatted it into average cost, average revenue, marginal cost, marginal revenue, all we did, we reformatted it, but we didn't gain any information. We didn't gain any insight. All we have now is a picture with marginal cost and average total cost. Right? But it is still the same firm with the same cost, except this cost is represented in terms of averages and marginals. Okay? Just like you earn great, right? You earn great. You go through college, you earn great. And in the process, of course, your grades ultimately add up to certain GPA. Right? GPA is derived from your grades. That's basically what's happening here. We're just expressing the same information in a different format. But why? Why would you do it? Why would you prefer this format to that format? Is this more aesthetic? Is it more fun to look at? Not really. Well, the advantage of doing things this way is that it's simpler. It's a lot easier to use. Let me show you. We're looking at a firm and we're asking, how much is this firm producing? And we're answering, well, it's going to produce quantity that maximizes the profit. That means quantity at which what is true? Price equals marginal cost. Okay, let this be price. Can you tell me what quantity this firm is producing? Yes or no? So look again. It produces a quantity at which price equals marginal cost. Can you see the price?
Mhm.
Can you see the price?
Yes.
Can you see marginal cost? Yes or no?
Yeah.
What quantity is the firm producing if it wants to maximize the profit? Where price equals marginal cost. That makes sense? That's the quantity the firm produces. Why is this a better way to analyze the firm than this way?
Easier to read.
Easier to read. You don't have to draw any parallels. Right? It's so much easier to work with. And then, of course, on top of it, results that follow are so much easier to come up with in this context when compared to this one. So that's why we use that context. Okay? So that's what this entire exercise was all about, guys. It's all about understanding how a single firm in this huge economy behaves, means how the firm chooses the quantity it produces. You might, of course, ask, how do I know that this is the price? Well, I don't know, I just made it up. But in the real world, prices don't just get made up, right? Price of pizza, large pizza in Jacksonville with one topping is about $10, right? Why is that the price? Is it because you made it up? No.
Market price.
It's the market price. It's the market price, and market prices are determined in market, what do we call it? What do we call it? Equilibrium. Absolutely, guys. So if this picture here is a picture of a market for pizza, right? Then this is market equilibrium. Output, this is market price. Demand, supply. In equilibrium determine the price. And the firm, this is a picture of a single firm, a single pizza place. The firm simply takes that price as given, right? If you want to start baking pizza in Jacksonville, and you're going to be baking an ordinary, large, one-topping pizza, how much are you going to be selling it for? $10. Why? Because if you want to sell it for more, nobody will come and buy it from you, because they can go somewhere else where they can get it for $10. And at the same time, why would you sell it for less? If you can sell it at $10, why would you go and sell it for 5 or 6 or 7, right? So that's the whole idea of this exercise, guys. It explains how the firm chooses the quantity to produce given the market price, given the market equilibrium price. Okay? So that's what we learned. Now, we then asked, what is the profit the firm generates? How much profit does this firm make? How do we find out? Well, profit is total revenue minus total cost. Can you see total revenue and total cost there? You don't. What do you see?
Average total cost.
Most definitely. You see that at this quantity, the firm incurs this average total cost. What is average total cost? It's the cost of baking an average pizza. That make sense? The cost of baking an average pizza. How much is this firm selling an average pizza for? How much?
$10.
For $10, for the price, right? So if you sell an average pizza for this much, and that average pizza costs you that much to bake, the difference is the profit you are making on an
Average pizza.
average pizza. Exactly. See? That's the profit you make on an average pizza. But how much do you make in profit overall in all the pizzas you bake? Well, if this is how much you make on average pizza, and this is how many pizzas you bake, then your profit must be this times the number of pizzas. That makes sense? If this is how much you make on an average pizza, let's say you sell pizza for $10. Let's say it costs you $8 to bake. How much are you making on an average pizza? $2. Let's say you're baking 100 pizzas. What is your profit? $200. How do you show that profit in the picture? You multiply 2 times 100, right? And you get this area. So the area of that rectangle represents
Your revenue.
economic profit. How big is the economic profit this firm is making? Is it positive economic profit or negative economic profit? Is it bigger than 0 or less than 0?
Positive.
It's positive, it's more than 0, right? Very good. So that's what we learned. And then, of course, we learned the meaning of economic profit. Do you remember what the meaning of economic profit is? Why do we distinguish between economic profit and accounting profit? Okay, let's take a break, and we'll continue after break, okay?